jokes.
All right, y'all. Insider joke. You got to be with us on last Friday to get to know us. All right. Welcome to the podcast. We are live streaming today. We are coming back with a interesting topic. This is one that we talk about often, at least 2 to 3 times per year. So my name is Dr. TK. This is Dr. Roche. And we are 2 licensed clinical psychologists from Northern and Southern California. And today we're diving deep on the history of how our background, upbringing, maybe even trauma, money trauma, leads to financial literacy or maybe illiteracy and
Yes.
some money habits that we've learned growing up. So we're going to play the interview game. I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Roche, and she is going to be dropping some great nuggets. I also have up the chat box, so if you're able to let us know your answers to some of these questions and how you feeling about what she's talking about, then by all means we'll pull some of those up on the screen. But I will allow her to officially introduce herself, and then we'll hop into the interview.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Roche Brown. I am also known as the Doctor of Rethinking because I help people to remix their thinking so they can make money, they can manage their money, and they can multiply their money. Okay. I am a financial psychologist. I am a licensed clinical psychologist, PSY 23906. Don't play with me. Right. So, and I've been doing this work for over like 20 years at this point, and been doing the financial psychology combination for the last 10 years so far.
Sorry about that. Had myself on mute. And
Yeah.
so that's a little bit of background. I know from the last few episodes that we had done, we had not went too deep, but this is an excellent topic because I find that especially in a day where there's a lot of inflation, there's a lot of fear around spending, investing, old school putting money under your mattress again. There's just a lot of things happening. And so before we get into money, can you share a little bit about your journey as a psychologist and being interested in how the brain works, but
Yeah.
specifically, how were you introduced to the coaching space? Because we're going to intertwine psychology with what else you do in the financial industry.
Definitely. So, so I grew up in deep East Oakland. If you know, you know. I used to like to tell people, like, if you know Too Short, like Keisha Cole, right? Then you understand a little bit about the Oakland dynamic. I used to be able to say I could be a little bit more refined, right? Because also our vice president, Kamala Harris, was also from Oakland. But if you have any understanding of Oakland, and particularly the area where I grew up in deep East Oakland, there was, people in my community as well as in my family and in the same household who were, addicted to certain like drugs, had maybe like poor spending habits, maybe were on cash aid. So I witnessed all of those things inside of my household and what goes along with those particular areas. And as I was growing up, I started to, I didn't know what psychology was, right? But I felt like I was doing therapy. I was doing financial, budgeting with people, and financial management when I was very, very young, because of the world that I was living in. And what ended up happening is, I was really drawn to psychology because I felt like I was drawn to, human behavior. Like, why do people do what they do? Why do they repeat certain cycles? Understanding people's emotional patterns. I used to call it hoodism when I'm like, you emotionally just like disconnected from what just happened there, right? Like your logic, your ability to rationalize is gone. You just in emotions. And so I saw those things and it just made me start to feel, like I wanted to learn more about it, and to understand my lifestyle, my growing up, but also like other people's. That were in my family. And so I ended up deciding to go into psychology. And anybody who ever tries to become a therapist and you go into school, you start learning diagnosis, you be like, there we go. Right there in my family. That was part of my learning, was to be able to diagnose everybody in my family, understand what was going on, conceptualize and formulate like, why did this happen based on this, based on this, based on this. That's why they act the way that they act. And so that was very clear and was really fascinating for me throughout my whole, life career. Now, 10 years ago, I did have a private practice. And, people were coming to my private practice and I would have high functioning adults, and private practice was way different than the world that I used to grow up in. That I was in my career in. And so people were high functioning, but they still had financial problems. You know, I also recognized when I was working with more nonprofit and I was working with foster youth, what would come up with them is it was time for them to emancipate from foster care, right? And they had to go on their own. So that would come up as well, right?
Yeah.
And when that would happen, they would have all this anxiety, all these fears. You know, people would. I remember one of my clients was like, "Can you get me on Social Security? Like, just give me SSI. Then I'm a win, right? Like, you know." So and I was like, okay. And I remember thinking through that in a real serious way, right? Because from a practical understanding, this young lady was scared because she wasn't going to have predictable income and no safety net for somebody to take care of her.
Yeah.
I understood it. But from a psychological and also using my hood like experience, I realized that once you get stuck on SSI, she would never get off.
That's
right?
good to
You know,
outline for a cycle.
yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like if she gets on it at 18 years old, you know, there's an interesting cycle. And those who know that there's an interesting cycle that happens when you get on SSDI, sorry, the disability one. But when you're on SSDI, you can't make a certain amount of money. So that means when you go out to work, there's a cap on how much you can make. Otherwise, you're not going to get the disability check. And so then now you're like stuck in this moment of like always never really achieving your true potential because you're afraid of getting no longer having this predictable income. Right. And so I knew that would harm her more than it would help her, you know, even though in the short term it was going to seem great.
Yeah.
Right. So I saw that happening. And so with my foster youth, I would, you know, teach them about budgeting because I knew that they would only have a very limited amount of money. I had to teach them how to make it. You know, how do we get there? How do we stay at our jobs? How do we regulate ourselves even when we don't like our boss, when we don't like our supervisor? You need the money that's here. How do we regulate ourselves to be in a good position? So these were things that I was like helping them with. And then I started to say like they need practical skills. These are kids. Like these are kids who've never been taught anything, you know. And so now I need to teach them, you know, how do you give to your parent who's going to come on payday? What do I do with that? Right. I had to start to teach them, you know, how to budget, how to save, how to keep certain money for just in case if you have a month where things are low. Right. How to save for things that you enjoy and you like to do. So I had to start teaching them those skills. Well, fast forward, like I was saying, I was already doing that 10 years ago when I'm in my private practice working with more high functioning people. I realized they had similar issues, even though they may not have come from foster care, right? That they either maybe were impulsive spenders, maybe they were giving to their family too much. These are Black professional women who just were like going through their money, not able to hit their financial goals, right? Feeling anxious when it comes down to tax season, feeling anxiety around like their debt. And so I realized that it wasn't just about just the human behavior and emotions. I needed to teach them practical tools and practical skills. And so that's when I started to combine the financial psychology. Let's talk about what's going wrong, but I also need to give you some tools and some skills on how to budget, you know, how to get out of debt. So I did both of them at the same time.
Yeah. And I mean,
So, yeah.
you've listed so many things. I'm like, ooh, these
I
can all
know.
break out. These can be a breakout session. So we have the pattern of, I'll say, like adults also putting children on Social Security.
Yes.
The general public not knowing that there are even caps because they don't read the paperwork.
Yes.
I know doing an internship, I used to do the SSDI evaluations, and
Yeah.
I found out with a situation that this was back in the day, that they couldn't even have a certain amount in their savings account because that would show that they were stable.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that like a
But
crazy cycle? Because it's like something that's supposed to help us, but it's also helping us keeping us down. You know,
yes.
and there's a lot of government that's like that, right? It's like if government really was a stepping stool to grow, that would be awesome. But a lot of government programs are there to kind of keep you, you know what I mean, under control.
Yes.
And so I hate that it operates like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think it's more sad, and I think this is why this conversation needs to happen more often, is that people don't understand the generational pattern of just
Right.
passing that mentality down to the next generation. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll take care of you, but you get $800 a month. But $800 a month, as we know in California, but let alone in 2026, ain't nothing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then when kids, I know we used to do independent living skills, when kids start paying attention to not just how much it costs to go to college, but how much it costs to live on their own, they
Yeah.
realize that social, like, mama, you got to cut that social. But
That
then
was
what
us.
happens when the mama don't want to? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, right, it's not enough. And just to even give you context of that particular young girl, I mean, this girl fired me, right, in the moment. She was like, "Oh, you know, I wanna work with somebody else," right? Like, because she felt if she was work with somebody who was less hood adjacent like me, right? I'm not even hood adjacent, I was in the hood.
Hood
But if she
adjacent,
was,
that's a
a
good one.
person, like, not she was gonna be able to trick them into making this decision, right?
Mhm.
And so I mean, she went through a whole skill set, and it was so funny to me because this girl called my manager and everything, right? Called my supervisor and was like, I mean, it was crazy, like, and said, like, I want a new therapist. I don't want to work with her anymore. Me and her have been working for 2 years, okay? And once my supervisor called me and said, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on? What what happened?" I started to laugh because I was like, "So the whole point is that you trying to tell me that you don't have the skill set to work, but you had enough skill set to be able to call my job to find my supervisor because you had to find who this. It wasn't like she even knew. Go find out who that person was and file an actual complaint against me, but you don't know how to work."
Decision
I'm like,
skills.
SSDI is telling me that you can't work, baby. You know what I'm saying? Did you forget that you did the opposite, right? Like, and so that was something that was so interesting to me. But years later, this young lady that I was no longer working with her. However, she still reached out to me on social
Hmm.
media, to be honest, right? She reached out to me and told me that she was going to graduate out of high school and she would like me to come. Right now,
Wow.
this young lady was 21, 22 years old, so past what would be considered high school age of getting a high school diploma. However, I was there for her. She knew that I would come. I don't need to get a check. That's not how I operate. Like, I was like, I will still show up. You know what I mean? And I showed up for that young lady because she needed a support system to
Mhm.
also celebrate her, right? People are
Mhm.
always around when things are going bad, but do you have a celebration or a support system as well,
Good.
And so I went there, and she ended up becoming a security guard, and she shared with me, "Wow, I make so much more money than I was going to make when I was going to choose to do social security."
Mhm.
And it was that moment that I was like, I knew I was making a good decision, but it was starting to feel nervous. I felt anxiety too, like what's going to happen in your life, right?
Mhm.
But to know that that decision was the right decision for her life was amazing, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and we saw that work. We see it a lot in work, but I want to shift the conversation a little bit because we as human beings going into the mental health field, and then
Yeah.
we find our own way, like you did with money and your love for wanting to understand money. When you
Yeah.
think back to your own upbringing, because I think sometimes people see people with degrees or
Yeah.
successful businesses, and some people make assumptions that nothing else is happening behind the scenes. So when you think about your upbringing, what early
Mhm.
memories would you mind sharing that you were exposed to, um, related to like your personal money story?
Yeah, definitely. So this is something I think everybody should take the time to reflect on, right? I think we don't take an opportunity to reflect. We just react into the life that we are in. But for me, there's been a couple of different money stories that impacted how I am today. When normally I tell people the story about like my money memory. This is a positive one, right? Because they could be pros and cons to all money memories. But one of them that I really remember is when it was time to go to McDonald's, right? Was the thing that I love to do and go get breakfast and stuff like that in the morning, as well as end up eating food out, maybe for lunch or dinner as well. I remember my mom said that my dad told her that don't be giving her McDonald's every single day, right? She should only be rewarded on like paydays. So let her know that, oh, it's my payday. Now this is when we decide to get a reward. Well, what did that teach me? That taught me delayed gratification, right? It taught me like a structure to how you're supposed to reward yourself when working, right? So I started to learn that. That was a great skill. I remember going to McDonald's, and at the time that I started to get to a point where I was like a number one at McDonald's, right? Which was not, like I might have been like 10 or 11 or whatever. I remember during that time that it would say $2.99. And then when it was time to pay, my mom would have to pay $3.24. And I remember thinking like, hey, how does that work? Like, why does it say one thing on the menu, but then you pay differently? And then my mom ended up describing to me what taxes were, right? What were sales tax, and so these were little moments of memories that I remember. Now, these are some other memories that I also remember that probably brought me into the field. So my mom, practical spender, those are the positives, right? My dad, delayed gratification. But on the other hand, the other people in my family and in my household, remember I lived in a big mama household. I mean, everybody and their mama get to stay there. Okay. And so when we're in that particular household, I would also see people get paid on the first, and they would be broke by the fifth. I saw people get like settlements. You know what I mean? Big, huge settlements. And then I was like, you still don't have a house? I don't understand. Like, why don't you have more,
It's
after
not
this?
calculating.
Yeah, like how are you broke again? Like after a couple of months, like that was a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Right.
People getting $30,000 was a lot of money during that time, right? I was like, so I saw people got $100,000. I'm like $100,000, like I'd be happy now. But this was like years ago, like, and I would see like their lives not necessarily change. Maybe I would see them get a new car, right? But then they wouldn't get the insurance to go along with the car, and then all of a sudden the car they get pulled over, and then the car gets impounded. You're like, huh? Like, why did you do those things?
Right.
That was in my household. That was the people in my community, operating under similar situations. People who were in addiction, right? Like people who had addiction, money be gone like very, very quickly because of their addiction. And one of the things that was a powerful experience of mine is that my cousin, who was older than I was, a lot older, she was an adult. She used to give me her money. So she was a person with addiction. She knew that she wasn't good with managing money. At the time, I'm young. I knew how to add and subtract very well. And she trusted me to give me her money. So she would get her cash aid, and she would give it to me. And it would tell me, give me, and just, she wouldn't say manage it. That wasn't the word she was using, but ultimately that's what I would do. Right. And so what she would do is give me the money. I would have an envelope with her money inside of it. And she would ask for $20. I would subtract $20 from there and say this. Now you have this much, right? Now, a little banker. Now, crazy thing is that I was such a banker at the time that I was like, well, let's take a percentage for me. I didn't even understand that. I didn't even understand what interest was and everything. But I was like, since I'm putting this work in, let's take $20 for me and subtract that from your situation too, because I'm putting in the work. Okay.
Executor, you're the executor of the.
Yes. And I didn't even understand what that even was. I just knew enough to know like this person is going to go through their money so fast. I might as well get some if I got to be nickel and dime, $5, $20, if I got to do something. Right. So I knew enough to do that, and then on top of that, in my family, which is kind of interesting, those who know this is American Indians, they actually get like almost like kind of retribution. So every, like 6 months or so, they get a check. Now, in my family, we had 2 American Indians. They were not my actual family members. They were actually like homeless people. My grandma was, we had a very interesting life. My grandma was their payee. They used to like live in my garage during times when it would be raining and stuff like that. And so they became family. They weren't direct bio family members, but they became family. I've known them my whole entire life. And if I see them out on the street, even though they're homeless and different things like that now, I'm still gonna say, hey, what's up? You're like you family, right? And so what I would also do, because my grandma was the payee, she would also do the envelope system, and then she would put it in my hands to be the one to subtract as they would get their money. Right. Wow. And so this skill set was what I learned, is that most people did not have, a lot of people, in my thoughts, most people didn't have money. Right. Only a small percentage had money, which was like my mom, my dad. My dad didn't live in my household with me, so I didn't really see him as much and wasn't exposed to all of his ways of doing things. But my mom, I was exposed to, because I lived with her, and I would see her have money, and everybody else in the family still need money and always have to ask her for money. And so it taught me that I need to be in the place of having.
Yeah.
Right. So when people need, I'd rather be the giver instead of being the one who needs to be given something.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of what operated my money story. And it makes sense now that what I do,
exactly,
ultimately, it wasn't like I knew what a financial psychologist was ever. Right. But I was like, it makes sense that I would put both of those together.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you were able to explain that so thoroughly and eloquently, because I think that when people hear the phrase, like we put them together, like psychologist, the study of the mind, and then it goes deep. And then we have finances, which is so many angles. I love how you blended the two, because you took the love that you had for psychology over time and understanding human behavior, but then you were technically already trying to, figure out human behavior. Since they put this money and bookkeeping in your hands. And so it was natural.
Yeah, it was.
Mm,
It was. It was straight curiosity. And I think like honestly, the best therapists are the ones who don't say that we know, but we stay curious about our
mhm,
clients and
mhm.
allow our clients to be the expert of their lives because they know their lives better than us. And
Exactly.
I think that I always just was curious, like how does this happen?
Mhm,
And the great thing about having both sides is that, I also not judgmental. I understand that people just it happens. I'm always curious as to why it happens,
yeah.
but I'm like, oh, I get why this happens to this person now that I understand their storyline,
Mhm,
why it becomes difficult for them to, hold money, save money, even understand that as a skill. Cause I'm like, oh, this is what happened to you, right? So
yeah.
I started to understand trauma better, understand how grief impacts things, how your emotions, how stress,
Mhm,
impacts, how your money movements are, you
yeah.
know?
So I know, like, I'm gonna look at it on the spectrum. I know we talked
Yeah,
about like I'm gonna call survival mode and like social security, but I want to go
right.
to the other end because I think we
Yeah,
are seeing this a lot more,
yeah,
especially in women, but just in a lot of people in terms
yes,
of the hustle culture.
yes,
Having I know me and you grew up in the 80s and 90s, and so
yes,
being exposed to people working multiple jobs, not multiple entrepreneurship adventures, right?
right,
And
right.
so especially in the Black community,
Yeah,
when we have seen or witnessed other people have multiple jobs, hustle hard, and stay in
yeah.
survival mode, how can something like seeing that shape us in our money stories as
Mhm.
adults, and especially looking at, I know for women, we can't sit still. We have an issue where if we're not working all the time, even though we want breaks, we feel like we're
Right.
unproductive.
Yes, yeah. It's so funny. A friend of mine said, like, her husband was like, "Can't you just be? Like, why do you always have to do so much, right? You just like you don't know how to be." And I was like, "That's so interesting," because we weren't really taught that,
Yeah,
And in my household, and we and you have talked about our different
yeah,
households. My mom wasn't a person who had multiple jobs, right? Like that wasn't like her thing. She was never gonna go into no business. Like that was not her
mhm,
her forte, right? I'm gonna stay at this one job, collect this one check, like that was her and who she was, right? I learned to be a little bit different. But I do believe that when you are like in that hustle culture, there's pros and cons to it. Because I feel
mhm,
like if you learn to hustle, that's why you're extremely ambitious, right? That's why you end up we both have accomplished so many degrees. You know what I mean? Like multiple degrees, right? Let's just put that out there, right? But we have multiple degrees.
yeah,
We are able to manage having jobs, big time 6-figure jobs along with having big time multi six-figure businesses, and those are positives that have come from the world like that
mhm,
we've lived in. So I think those are good things, but we also can be taught from a financial standpoint to, if you want to have a certain lifestyle, go ahead and make more, right? Now, is that a
yeah,
good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. You know what I mean? So it means
mhm,
that I want to make more so I can spend more. That may
yeah,
have been what was taught, you
yeah,
know? And what we also do when you mentioned like survival mode,
mhm,
when I think about us living in survival, we're only reactive to what's immediate,
mhm,
right? Like I want to go on this trip now. My
mhm,
kid needs a college a prom party now. We're only thinking about immediate stuff, right?
mhm,
I'm thinking about I want a new car now. I need these shoes now, right? It's all like survival mode is reactive, right?
yeah,
Or I need to pay this bill now. So this is now I
mhm,
got to go work. I got to go do these things in
yep,
order to make this happen. And I feel like the problem with survival mode is that we never become like wealth builders,
mhm,
right? We don't think about our future selves. We only think about what has to happen in this moment,
mhm,
and so I was even talking to a young, I'm calling her a young lady. She's 63. I don't know if this is a young lady, right? But I'm just gonna call it a young lady. Yeah, right. But she's 63 years old and she's gonna retire soon in the next couple of years. And she's like, so what do I need to do that? I was like, see that's survival mode. That's
wow, at
how
63?
yes, yes, right.
Oh, I'm just
And
like,
so
wait, let that
yeah,
register.
yeah, yeah. So, like, I mean, take this in because we are so crisis oriented, stress motivated, survival motivated that we're not thinking about the future
Do
until
you
it's
think that that's
already
hard right
almost
now in
done.
2026 though? Like
Say it
versus
again.
if we would have had this conversation 10 years ago versus what's happening now, and some people who don't like to live month to month, the
Yeah,
economy has done nothing but position us to sometimes, it's
yeah.
different.
I think there's a combo, right? And I would
Yeah.
say longer than 10 years ago. So I would
Mhm,
say, there was a time, 20 plus years ago, I would say, that jobs positioned you to be successful,
mhm,
right? the world, the economy positioned us to still be successful. So meaning that you could have stayed at one job.
Mhm.
You could have been contributing to your 401k. They made you contribute to your pension. That was part of your benefit package. They
Mhm.
made you contribute to your pension.
Yeah.
And so by the time it was time for the retirement to happen, you weren't going to retire until Social Security came through. So you have Social Security check, and you would also have a pension check.
Yep.
Now you're winning. Ideal situation, you would have learned early on how to become a homeowner. You would have been paying off your home, right? Maybe around 30 years old or something like that, 30, 35, you become a homeowner. By the time 65 hit, your home is paid off.
Free and clear.
Yay. It's clear. We're free and clear. So now you have low liabilities, right? So you don't have a home. I mean, you don't have a home payment to pay for. Maybe you got your last car. The car is still working. You don't really do too much. You have the same car. So you have a very low expenses. And ideally, you have Social Security as well as your pension. So now you have a good income.
Yeah.
That's what the ideal retirement life is supposed to look like. But when we look at our lives now, I think there's so many different things that affect it. On one hand, I think a lot of us don't stay at jobs for no 40 something years.
6
That's
months to a
one
year.
thing. Right. When you think about millennial, like Gen Xers, whatever the case is, Gen Z, we ain't trying. That's not what we're going to do. We're not going to stay at a job that long. We always move, especially even professional women or men. We see better opportunities. So we leave, certain things. We don't feel stuck, right? Now we know we don't have to stay in toxic jobs. We can have other opportunities. So we don't stay places long enough to be able to build out a strong retirement.
That's good.
Another thing, a lot of jobs don't even have retirement at all, right? Even that has gone away. So some people don't even have retirement. We don't stay long enough to build it or to get vested into our retirement. That becomes a thing. We then are not taught. We even if our older generation were doing well with their money, they don't always teach us the skills as to what they were doing. I could think about older generations, how they didn't really get into a lot of credit card debt. Oftentimes they don't even use that many credit cards. They if I don't have the money, then I don't buy it. Right. But we came into the credit card generation where it's like, what? I can buy this and I can pay it later. You know what I mean? And we got ourselves more into a credit zone that other people didn't have to do. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like that.
Because I know that we FaceTime Boxer all the time.
Yes.
And one of the funny conversations that we've been having since we all been curious about stuff is I was sharing with you, and I've shared with you a few times how I was at a meeting in like a financial industry meeting, and it was after my grandfather had passed. And so for those of you who are not familiar with some of my story, because I talk about it more on the audio podcast, my grandfather was working for Universal Studios and like motion pictures. And so I didn't understand the grasp of how big of a deal that was, especially for a Black man, until he had passed. A lot of stuff did not make sense until I was financially literate. Beyond my paycheck and hustling, and him passing and seeing what he was able to leave to his children and, et cetera. Not just money, but just like his mentality when he was alive. And some of the things that Dr. Roche was saying was like very much on point. Like his thing was, we gonna get a car, we pay in cash. Like his last car was a brand new Cadillac on little white wall wheels, you feel me? And he was like, we don't do, he was mad at me for buying a certified pre-owned car. Like, what do you mean you gonna have a car? No, your grandmother give you the money, just pay her back, no interest. And I'm like, no, that was his mentality. But what I'm getting at is during that meeting, I was crying. And I was crying for a few things that were positive in terms of awards. But then everybody thought that I was crying also because of his death. And while by all means, I grieved the loss of my grandfather, I was like, actually, I'm very upset. And that was appalling to some people. And I said, I'm upset. And I made it educational that he passed away, and our grandparents or even our living parents or caregivers, they tell us what to do, but they do not tell us how to do it. And I'm just sitting here looking at all the things that he was able to accomplish. Now looking back hindsight, and I'm like, it would have been so nice if I'm around you every day after school for you to like teach me one thing a week. That would have been great.
Right. And I think in their world, nobody directly probably taught them, like sat down and taught them. They just learned by, modeling, right? Maybe that's what their parents did. And so that's what they did, is just continue to do the same thing. And so I think that's why they never think to do that. Right. But then they also don't realize when generations have changed, right? When maybe credit cards are introduced or like other things that were not introduced in their lives, how they would operate with that.
Mhm.
And I don't think that we take the time out enough to sit down and really just focus, with our children on how to teach them certain things or be conscious of like what we're teaching them, even when we're indirectly teaching them,
What does that
certain
mean? Can you
things.
give some examples of that so that I know we've had the discussions, but can you talk to the audience about that?
Yeah, yeah. So, for instance, if we think about indirect stuff, right? One indirect thing that my mom did teach me, I don't do it, because we don't do it the same way anymore. But I used to see my mom have a checkbook, and every time she would write a check, there was like on the top of it was an area for you to balance the checkbook,
Oh, yeah,
at
I
the
love that.
end. And I would see her do that, and then she would tell me what it means. Another thing that is interesting is like debit cards. So of course now we don't really even have checks. I mean, half the time I gotta like go find where my checkbook is. I don't even know, right? We're more like debit and swiper kind of card situations, right? Over time my mom did become that as well. And so what indirect thing that we can do to a child is swipe all the time.
Mhm.
Now, every time we're swiping, it's giving the kid the thought process that money just is like unlimited. You could just keep on going, right? You swiping a credit card, swiping a debit card, right? That's an indirect like understanding that we can whatever we want, we can get,
Mhm.
right? It almost teaches like a level of impulsivity. Okay, we
Mhm.
want it, let's get it. You know, I think another thing that people do or parents do now is they will because we have DoorDash. DoorDash wasn't a thing when we were younger, but DoorDash is a thing now. Or in Amazon, right? Things that make things even faster. Our convenient
Mhm.
world that we live in. Well, oftentimes they will put their credit card on an Amazon account or a DoorDash account
Mhm.
and give access to their child to be able to go and purchase those things. Well, what's happening is that child is unlimited. They just get this unlimited, like I could whatever I want to do,
Mhm.
unlimited. So we're indirectly teaching them that. While like some of the things that like I teach my daughter now because I'm conscious of these things and I try to make sure she understands it as much as she can. She's only 6, but when we're looking on Amazon, she'll be like, "Ooh, that I like that. Let's get that. Oh, I like that. Let's get that." And then I say like, "Well, I like that, but let's consider that."
Mhm.
Right? So I'm teaching her like we're considering purchasing certain things, right? What goes into consideration? Do we have the money for it? Is it something that we really need? Are all our needs met before we decide to create a want? Right?
Mhm.
And so I'm helping her see those things. She has a little bank, right? She's saving inside of the bank, so I'm teaching her, wow, money can happen, and you can put the money in, and when the money happens, it doesn't have to be touched. What? That's
Mhm.
like that. It's now part of her understanding. Money doesn't have to be touched. It can just sit there and continue to grow.
Yeah.
Right. We also teach her like when she does different things. Of course, she works in my business, right? And she really like works and does really real tasks, right? She puts life insurance policies inside of the package to mail out to people. She likes to do it. It's a fun task to her now. She like my books. She packaged all my books, put the labels, she gets it from the label maker. She puts it on there. She locks it up. So she does all of those things. And then I give her money for those tasks.
Mhm.
So now she knows like, oh, I could like work and I can make more money, right? I can
Mhm.
solve a problem. She needs help. If I'm a helper, helpers get paid, right? So she's learning those kind of skills and and it's kind of indirect, right? She's just doing something that she doesn't, and I like me sitting down and looking at money with her,
Yeah.
but she's learning certain things like that. And so I think that we have to be conscious of what are we teaching our kids?
Mhm.
Are we even teaching them?
Mhm.
Or are they just watching us? Are we stressing when it's time to pay something? Then they notice that that's what happens. Stress happens with money. You
Mhm.
know, so we want to like just be aware of that. One good quote, I got it from TD Jakes, and I cannot find it anymore, but I swear I heard this man say it.
Okay.
But if it wasn't him, this is what it said. It said that you have to be it's more important what you leave in your child.
Mhm.
It's more important what you leave in your child than what you leave to your child.
That's good.
Right now, me living in the world of legacy, also being a life insurance agent, I think about legacy all the time. It's more important what you leave in them and less important what you leave to them, right?
Mhm.
Because if you leave something to them and nothing in them, they will squander everything that you give them,
Mhm.
right? So it's like we get inheritances, right? Maybe like we're saying, older generation, they have the houses, they had retirement accounts, they had money in their savings, but they never teach the grandkids who may end up inheriting this. Oh, this is what you're saying. Like I'm upset. Like, they don't teach them what to do once they inherit all of these things that they have worked so hard for. How does it continue to go to the next generation and the next generation to have the same amount of things? So we have to teach something and make sure that something is inside of our child and not just only be worried about only what we're giving to them. I think you should do both. We want to give them something, but we also want to make sure that we're working on what's going in them as well.
It's a word that's coming to mind. Well, two words. One is patience, technically leading to delayed gratification. Because as you were talking about the kids, I think this is a conversation we could have all day long, especially with prom party versus college party, because it's a whole other thing, right? But as you were even sharing the quote, I was literally visualizing my son. And I think you know about this game, excuse me, that I play with him. And it was because I never thought about it in terms of like the debit card. I did think about the unlimited part, but not in that phrase. So I think that other people are like, whoa, you put words to like why I'm feeling a particular way, why my kids just think money grows on trees, kind of thing. But these days they don't actually see the money versus back then. We have to be patient. If the money does not come in our hands when we cash our check, then we literally have to wait until the next paycheck versus nowadays, these people overdrafting their accounts. You feel me?
Exactly.
And banks allow it, some of them. And so with that in mind, this is like another hack. I know I have a lot of moms that are in our community or, watch the podcast. And I'm real big on vision boards. And so my son has become that person. Like he is a mini version of me. And the whole what Dr. Roche was speaking is I love how we can go out and to improve delayed gratification. Randomly one day, I'm like, I don't like saying no all the time because there is no, I don't know when, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it doesn't make sense right now. You got 5 trucks at home, you feel me? Right, so I pulled out my phone one day and I said, do you know my vision boards at home? And he was like, yeah. I said, didn't we create a vision board for school for your next, for your grades and stuff? And he was like, yeah. I said, what if we created a vision board for like Christmas? What if we created a vision board just cause, but it started with Christmas? So what has happened is every time we go to Disney World or Disneyland out here in California or to Target or to Walmart, he will actually pull up a toy. And unless he knows he has a gift card, because he'll pull it out like, oh, I got $50 on this gift card. He will say, oh, can you take a picture for me? And other parents are listening, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, we building vision boards because it allows him to pause. And what I notice is when we go home, he done found another toy on my phone on Amazon anyway. So he even forgot what he asked for when we went to Disneyland last week. You know what I'm saying? And so that has helped. But what I also noticed that you said in terms of the live within is I pay attention to what the teachers say. The teachers say if there is something difficult, they talk about internal. He is a very intuitive child. And one of the things they like about him, if we're looking at different types of wealth, even wealth of knowledge and wealth of stamina, is when something is difficult, he will keep going. Because he has a picture in his head like, no, I'm going to learn this. So I fully hone in on that because our kids one day, y'all, I hope will move out on their own. Some of our children, we want them to go to particular colleges and we want them to leave. So we got somewhere to go to. But they need skills in order to stay gone.
Yeah. It's something that you just said just reminded me of something. My friend Victoria did this for my baby, and it was just amazing. And we use it now within the household. But when life is very difficult, like when you're saying like when things are difficult, she taught her, because sometimes she can give up, like little kids, they be like, I just can't do it, it doesn't work. You be like, did you even try? Like you just like gave up so quick. But then now instead of I can't, now she says it's a little bit challenging, but I got this.
That's good.
Right. So we like calm down. Like, I mean, I remember she was, pushing the basket inside of the store, and it was like hard to kind of make the turn into the next aisle. And she was like, oh, I just can't, like, I can't do this, getting frustrated. I was like, do we say that? No, it's a little bit challenging, but I got this. Right. And what it does is that it calms her down to recognize that her brain has the ability to learn something and how to do it. Right. Like, it doesn't mean that it's not possible. You can at least try a different way. Do you need to request other support? Do you need to ask me how to do it at this point? Right. Like, but you calm yourself down versus just being so reactive to say, I can't do something,
that's good.
When things are difficult. Right. And so I think that is super helpful when it comes down to kids. Like, it's a little bit challenging, but I got this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I got this. I can still do this. And I think it's something to say to myself. I don't know, as we doing business and everything, it's a little bit challenging, but I got this. Like, I got this. I can make this happen as well. So
So you
So yeah.
did mention something, since we're talking about like paying it forward, generational wealth. So everybody, the reason why we even titled this podcast episode, I mean, we didn't go straight into it, but I mean, we are from the hood. We didn't give
Yes.
y'all a specific description. Um,
Yes.
but there are certain mentalities that goes on when we grow up in particular areas. Like, can you
Right.
let them know what part of the Bay Area you're from? Because you just said Oakland. Oakland's big. You feel me?
Yes, yeah. I said deep East Oakland, Brookfield, if you understand what that is, 9-8. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, so
Well, us and these.
like
Look, watch your
so,
fingers. Watch your fingers.
right, 9-8. If you know, you know, right? You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, so I mean, like that's what I said. I grew up in in a particular area that let me just tell you this is a funny story. But when I first got into the world of like becoming a therapist and doing community-based therapy, when I was working with the foster youth, one of the things that they had us do is in the areas that we were going to be going to, they wanted us to go to the police department website. So I went to the OPD website and you can type in an address and there's icons of crime and activities, right? So there may be an icon of rob, car theft, like, you know, different things like that. And so I just was curious, put in my address. When I tell you, it was so many icons on top of icons on top of icons, I couldn't even see the houses no more. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. Like that was like, and the interesting thing is that when you grow up in the hood, you don't feel as unsafe as what it may be. Like,
Say
right?
that again. Normalize PTSD. That's what.
Yeah, normalized PTSD. You don't even realize it's that unsafe. You go walk around, don't even, don't even be tripping off of like, oh yeah, you walk past candle vigils and balloons all the time, okay? And be like, wait, somebody just died here, but I'm about to go here,
My
right?
mom had one in front of her house. She was like, now listen, it's been 2 weeks. Y'all ought to be used to this. Move this.
You see what I'm saying? So like I said, if you know what it means to have these areas, right? So so I grew up in this particular area, just to give you guys context, right? And that's like I said, that means that addiction was around, people struggling with that, people having more of a poverty survival mindset, even maybe feeling embarrassed by certain things. It's so funny because I was talking to my partner about food stamps, right? I seen something, I was like, that look like food stamps. He was like, they don't even have food stamps no more. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like it's only the EBT cards. But I remember food stamps because I was in the world of youngness where food stamps was a thing. You know what I mean? And I didn't have food stamps directly in my house, but my auntie and them did, and it felt like free money to me. So I was like, hey, okay, I see how it works at the liquor store and stuff like that. But at the same time, I also felt embarrassment. So when my mom would have to go grocery shopping for my aunt, she would use food stamps. My mama didn't care because she was like, we need to, buy this stuff for her. But for me, I remember being like, can you let me know if you gonna use food stamps? Because I want to walk away. Like I don't want people to think that I'm poor. And I remember that was literally like part of my thoughts. And so I think that you can grow up with a state of embarrassment, and I think when we all three of those things, right? Like, wherever environment, that survival, scarcity mindset, it can give you like two different angles. Okay. On one hand, you may become a restrictor. You want to save every little dime that you have and you don't ever want to spend, right? You might be on one end. And then the other end may be that you start learning how to status spend. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I remember when I used to have Pro Wings. So since I used to have Pro Wings, I'm about to get all the Jordans now. You know what I'm saying? You might go to the next level where you're like, every time I get a check, I'm going to spend to look like money. Right. Mm-hmm. And we can get to a point that even by the time that we're our age, 30 and 40 years old, we can have some embarrassment around what we've done with our money. Right. Mm-hmm. But we look like money. You know what I'm saying? We look good on the outside. We have all the accoutrements, right? Mm-hmm. Of like a person with status and doing well financially, but internally, right, in our actual bank account, it may be in the negative or whatever the case is. That also may be happening. And so I feel like the hood can teach us like look good, but not necessarily like be good, in the reality of it. So I think that comes from that unconscious, like, thought process of like, I need to look good, but not be good. Or you can be on the other end where it's like, I'm never going to spend nothing in the world because, I'm nervous. Right. And coming from the hood life that I grew up in, this is going to be a funny thing about Dr. TK, but I grew up feeling that way. Right. I was more so, let me hold on to everything that I have because I know I got to give it to everybody and I don't trust anybody else. I don't feel like I can depend on anybody if I mess up. Right. So like if I mess up, who am I going to ask for money? I'm the person everybody else asked.
That's good.
You know, so then it makes me restrict more. But I can recall, like when I became like in grad school and stuff like that, and I don't know if I was a doctor yet, but we knew that we was gonna be doctors because we didn't get into grad school to not become the doctor. Okay, but I can recall, and I don't know if you remember this, but we are going to some store now, y'all, if y'all know Dr. TK, she's super fashionable and everything like that, and knows about how to look cute. Okay, she can look cute on low budget. She can look cute on high budget. She's gonna
Listen,
be cute.
Costco.
Yeah, I'm saying she's gonna be cute. Okay, and we go into a store, and she was like pretty much like my stylist, my personal
Oh,
stylist for
Coach.
the day.
It was Black Friday when we went to Vegas every year.
So she was like, she was picking out, but we went to multiple places. She picked out clothes, she picked out like, whatever, purses, belts, whatever, different things like that for me. And I remember her being like, "You was a doctor." Now she used to put some other little extra inside of that, but you was a doctor. Like you deserve to kind of like, go, get what you want, right? Don't feel so restrictive of every little thing that you have when you have money. Right? Like it wasn't like I didn't have money. It wasn't like things were not already paid for or saved or anything. It was just like break yourself free. You know what I'm saying? From what was your experience before and what is your experience now. Right. And so I think that that's like a positive of like going from restriction to now being okay with spending money. Right. And then you can also be on the opposite side. You spend too much money. We can always move into the state of, oh wait, I can start making better decisions now before I spend that other money. I think that's where we need to be.
Yeah. Can I say a disclaimer? Because I mean, when it comes down to money spending, I think that's especially the more and more people make, especially these days, it can become very judgmental in terms of, I know we've had conversations around like, who can we or should we tell how much money we really make, including Coach family members, because they don't understand it or they think the money is sitting in our account, even though it's our business money, not our money. But when I think about what you just said, I think about individuals who, I know we talked about this when we used to go to Essence Festival, is like when it comes down to looking at how other people spend money, it's okay to be curious, right? But keep in mind that people will also choose beyond material goods of how they choose to invest their money. So if you were to see me and Dr. Roche's DM on Instagram, it's probably 99.9% travel. And we have the jokes like, well, we made it out the group chat. I don't know about y'all. Like we are those friends that say outside of these kids' calendar.
You can ask me like last minute and I'll be like, okay.
Go to Africa?
Yes.
Oh, we're going to Africa next Friday? Oh, let me see the kid schedule. Let me like not know, can we start with Vegas? It's like, oh, we going to Africa? Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes, let's make it happen.
So I'm just saying that because some people will choose, when you look at those spectrums, some people also will choose not to do material goods, but to also pour into themselves and do experiences. Because I know we talk about abundance a lot.
Right.
Now I'm gonna go back a little bit. You did talk about life insurance, and I did just want to go back there slightly because there is a negative, attachment in the Black community or in colorful community about I don't want no life insurance. And I want you to talk about what that could do for families, especially for passing it on, for the future and taking care of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, from a spiritual lens, we always hear like a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, right? Which means that we're leaving inheritance for our grandchildren that may not even exist at this very moment, right? But we're thinking about the future generation. We also can think about a lot of us want to leave an inheritance, and one way that I think about it is think about your current life right now. If somebody was to give you $100,000, how would that change your life right now? Right? Could you not be maybe you're not a homeowner now, but now you're able to be a homeowner because that $100,000 just came into your life, just changed the trajectory of the generations ahead because now you became a homeowner. Now your child grows up in home ownership and now they become a homeowner, right? Like because that money was interjected into your life, maybe you felt like you never could ever get out of debt. Like it was just too big of an amount. You didn't know how to do it, but that $100,000 came in and helped you do that, right? Maybe you wanted to invest. Like I've always wanted to learn how to invest in the stock market, or maybe I want to invest in other businesses. Now that $100,000 comes in and it gives you opportunity to become like a real estate investor, gives you opportunity to be able to, get into that coaching program that you thought you would never be able to get into. So we know that an inheritance right now in our lives would change things. Mm-hmm. So when you think about what are you going to give to the next generation, think about that. Do you want to be the person who imparts maybe 100,000, maybe a little less, a couple of thousand, right? Wouldn't you be happy if you got 5, 10,000? Would you want to be that person who's going to contribute that to the next generation, right? And so that's how I think about life insurance. Is that is your legacy. That's what you're going to be building. Now we know, and something maybe you don't know, but in life insurance, it's not only just one way, right? Like you don't have to use your life insurance when you die. And I think we have such negative connotations for life insurance because we only think about death. And when death comes up, it makes us scared. Even though it's going to be inevitable, it's going to happen to people no matter what. We don't know the time, we don't know the place, right? We know that it's going to happen, but our brains and our mind feels like it's so bad, right? Like it's so bad. I don't want to be involved in that, you know? And so so in those times, I really tell people like to think about that, you know, to think about this when you're thinking about life insurance is to make sure that you're leaving for the legacy, but also to realize that life insurance has other functions that you can use right now while you're still living. One of the major functions is the cash value component. Life insurance has a savings component. And for us that are maybe never going to learn how to invest, we like, I don't want to learn how to invest, ain't trying to learn how to invest, don't want to put no money in no stock market, I'm too scared, right? For all of us that may have that kind of experience or thought process about that, then you're like, hey, I'm investing without even paying attention. I'm just paying my life insurance policy and investments are starting to happen. You know, that's a great thing. If I overfund it, put more money inside of it, now if I'm an entrepreneur and I don't even have any 401k or anything at my job, now I'm creating my own. You know, it has other options to it. When I learned about this, and I didn't learn it until I was 32, 33 years old, so about 10 years ago. And now it's like, okay, now I have a substantial amount of money inside of my life insurance policy that I'm able to invest. I have real estate investment, you know what I mean? That's available. I also like have money that if I wanted to take it out, like I could use it for other opportunities. So there's so many different things that are there that most people don't realize. And another component that's so important is something called living benefits. I gotta like put y'all on this. Like you need to have living benefits. That could help no matter what. I don't care if you have kids or you never even plan on having kids. God forbid you were to get a critical illness such as cancer, heart attack, stroke, right? They will give you, accelerate that money to you right now while you're still living. I don't care if you have great health insurance, right? Like you still want to be able to get that money right now. Let's say I have a real client, actually, a client who had $100,000 policy. She got diagnosed with a mild heart attack. When we're talking about stress and chaotic environments and all that kind of stuff, it leads us to stress. Stress then also ultimately will lead to a physical manifestation of that. That physical manifestation of that can then lead you into debt, right? Because now she had a mild heart attack, she can't work, you know, all those kind of things. But the life insurance company gave her $53,000.
Oh, wow.
She had that policy for only 4 years. She had nowhere near she only paid maybe a less than $5,000 into that policy. And she ended up getting $53,000 out of that policy, right? That was money she couldn't use right now. Now, guess what? It's money that she's going to be able to become a homeowner with if she continues to use the plan that we created, but whatever. But like, that's the goal. Like she can now become a homeowner at this point, right? So all of us need to be having the living benefits, if nothing at all. We need to be in that position for living benefits.
Yeah. So two things. One, how would someone, if someone wanted to learn more about that, or if somebody had like even a past insurance policy, but they want to learn more about just the evolvement of their wealth, like how would it best they contact you?
So you can contact me on workwithdroche.com. Okay, so workwithdroche.com is like the best way. You jump on my calendar, you'll tell me that you are interested in life insurance, and I could, you know, work with you. Now, please understand the way that I am as a person, you can get the information and you don't have to like make a move at that very moment. I like people to think. I like people to develop questions and come back to me and ask me questions, right? Because I realize that that's a person who has true understanding is going to make a better long-term decision, right? And so jump on the calendar, get the information. You can just tell me, hey, I just want to know what it is like. I will say, okay, this is what it is. It's going to cost you around this amount of money. This is how you can see an actual policy. I'll show you what it looks like. And then you can make a choice and say, okay, well, I'm gonna hit you back up in a week, a couple of days, or maybe a couple of months. That's when my finances are going to be in order, but at least now I know what I'm looking towards, right? And what I'm preparing for. So you definitely could do work with Dr. Roche. If you want to, you can slide in my DM. I'm okay with that too,
Oh,
right?
that's on
You
Instagram?
know,
Oh, I'll put that up.
on Instagram. Yeah, go ahead to Instagram, slide in my DM. I'll send you the calendar link from there. So if that makes sense for you, you can definitely do that as well. So,
Yeah.
we got options.
Now, is one thing that we did not talk about, but I'm gonna go ahead and slide this in because I know we talk about it on the side, is you mentioned it earlier regarding this day and age, people do not stay at jobs. People transfer, people go to different places. And one of the conversations we had that I wanted you to come to my paid community and talk about, but let's go ahead and just put people on right now, is the idea that kind of like a relationship, like, ladies, do you leave your hairbrush at a dude's house when y'all broken up? And the answer is no. And so if that's the case, then why are you leaving your money at old jobs? For people, like, what is that called? In which how they can also hop on your calendar if they've had past employment, but they have pots of money just spread out all across the world.
Yeah. So like when you're
Uh-oh. Did I lose you? Can y'all still hear me? Hold on, y'all. We froze.
There we go.
Okay. All right. I'm like, we froze. Okay. There we go.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say, just in answering your question, like what is it called when you leave money at a different job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is considered to be like a 401k or TSP or deferred comp. That's like your retirement at that job. Okay. Now the thing is, like you're saying, like if you had an ex-boyfriend, you ain't gonna leave your money there. So why would you leave your money at your current job? You want to be able to have control over that money. And so what you can do is do something called a rollover. You can roll your money over into another product, right? And when you roll over your money into a different product, you want to make sure you roll your money over into the same tax category. So you want to understand that I don't want it to be a taxable situation when I roll over my money. So I need to make sure that it's in the same category. One of those areas is rolling it over into an annuity, or an IRA, right? Like a traditional IRA. So you already have money in your 401k, you roll it over into an annuity, okay? That's a great option for your money. Now, when you decide to choose an annuity, there's two different kinds. There's a variable annuity and there's an indexed annuity, okay? Variable is just like what it says. It's like the stock market. Your money goes up, but your money goes down, right? And that's what we also know about our 401ks, right? Why we don't want to leave it at our current jobs, because they're also in the stock market and they can go up, but they can also go down. Okay. And so you can lose a ton of money. And so what we want to do is participate in something called the index. So INDEX, right? And what happens with the index is when the stock market goes up, yay, our money goes up. We like that part. It does go off to a cap. It does come to a cap. Okay. So it's not going to end up, giving you all the growth of the market. So let's say the market does, I don't know, 18%, you may only make 12. Okay. It's going to cap you off. But it's to account for when the market falls down, because the market will fall down. We know that it does that. Your money's going to lock in and you're not going to lose any of your money. When looking at historical performances of the index versus the stock market, we recognize that the index will outperform the stock market. Why? Because it never has to recover from loss. One of the things that people don't understand when it comes down to loss is this. Like, I'll give you an example, and maybe it's easy for you to follow. And Dr. TK, you'll be the audience for me.
Okay.
Right. Let's say you end up having $10,000. Okay. And the market goes up 50%. So that means you made $5,000.
Right.
All right. So now you're at 15,000. You happy. Yay. Now, what happens when the stock market goes down 50%? Right. Now, the average person will be like, oh, I'm going to go back to my 10,000. No, now you're going to have 50% of the 15,000. Well, 50% of 15,000 is 7,500. It's lower than what you originally started with. Okay. That's why I need people to understand. So it's lower than what you originally started with.
They got to do the math, the numbers.
Yes. Right. So the numbers, like, not just like, oh, it went up 50%, it went down 50%. I'm the same. No, it's not. With the numbers, you're lower than what you thought that you were. Okay. It's so important for you to understand that, because when people are saying like, just keep your money in the stock market, it'll bounce back. It will bounce back if you have time for the bounce back. Right? If you have time for the bounce back. So I believe in having money in multiple areas, right? I was just talking to a client right before this, and I was like, you want to have money in high yield savings accounts? That's money for me to live and move around right now, right? But I should also have money, inside of my retirement accounts. I should have something that is like an index. I don't want to lose any of my money. I'll be able to prepare for what that money is going to look like in the future. I want to have my money there. But also, you want to have a little money in your cash value life insurance, right? You got some in there, like, okay, that money growing in there. But I do believe in having money in stocks, right? I do believe in playing option trading and different things like that. But that money is only when you have money left over after all those things are taken care of, right? Mm-hmm. My high yield is doing good. I got my abundance fund. We don't talk about emergency funds. We live out of abundance fund, right? Right. So make sure you got your abundance fund together, okay? Right. So that abundance fund is that first thing. You have that in place. That abundance fund. Make sure you have at least 1 month of your expenses saved. Maybe you got even more than that, right? If you got more, the better your life gonna be. 3 to 6 months, ideal situation. Mm-hmm. But then from there, you're like, okay, I also want to be able to contribute to my life insurance. Make sure your life insurance is together. We want all those things to be happening at the same time. I'm building my abundance fund and my life insurance at the same time, right? I just so happen to have a 401k in my previous job. Let me roll it over. Let me get it to go somewhere else at that time, right? Then after all those things are together, then I'd be like, I got a little extra money. Let me go play. And that's when you go play and you start doing some day trading or different things like that. Or you can start doing trading, and that could be fun. And I think it can be fun. And I believe it's a complete wealth builder, right? As long as you have the willing and the patience to learn how to use the skill, you got to have some patience. You got to have a thick stomach, right? For when things go the wrong way, because they will. Right? There's times it'll go the wrong way, but you just want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. When that's happening, you want to learn from the mistakes or whatever that you've made. I've lost a lot of money in the stock market, but I made a whole lot too. Right? Mm-hmm. And so you want to make sure you're learning. So then you become a better money maker. Yeah. In the stock market as well.
Yeah, that's good. I'm just going to go ahead and just do a shameless plug. So for those of you who are in our community, let me do two. One of Dr. Roche has not been in our community for just a couple of months. And so we're going to be having private practice and scalability for streams of income summer school, where we are bringing back all of our cohorts. And Dr. Roche will be coming to our community to talk about that personal cash flow so that you can get your money right. Yeah. And if you have participated in our boot camp as of last week, then this is one of your bonuses, because we do have support coaches that come in and directly attack certain areas that we know that mental health providers are slipping in and or just are unaware. Or we illiterate in certain areas, and it's okay to admit that as long as we're receptive, because we want successful businesses. But for us to be in a service-based business industry, a lot of our building of our businesses are going to come from what we do personally. So I just wanted to, do a shameless plug and, let y'all know that she's going to be up in there, and we're going to go deeper. Because we're going to also, can you grab your thick book back there?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's thick only because I got all of them together. But yes, here goes my book. The book is called Rethinking Money, right? It says the behavioral blueprint for healing, right? Your relationship with money. And guess what? Building wealth. I believe that things are on a spectrum, right? Like some of us don't know how to know any financial literacy, right? And we need to get to the point that we're even starting to budget. Right. Mm-hmm. But now some of us already budget. We at least get our bills taken care of. But now we don't know how to build wealth. Right. And so what it does is that it's going to cover all those areas. So if you haven't been starting at all, this is where you start. Right. If you have got a little bit, something under your belt, this is how you kind of build and go even further. Mm-hmm. I believe in the 5 M's of money. We need to get our money mindset together, right? We need to learn how to do money manifestation. And that's the vision component of things, right? We need to manifest and attract, right? Like I don't chase, I attract money. Okay. Right. I make money easily and effortlessly. Baby, that's what I do. Okay? Yes. So we want to make sure that we attracting money to be into our lives, right? And then the third thing that the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure not only are we manifesting and making it, but that we're managing it better. We're keeping some of the money that we make, and then we want to multiply it. That's the wealth building component, is like, let's multiply it. Let's make our money make money for us too. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's what we are looking for. And that's what we want to do. And inside of the book, the great thing is I have QR codes in the book. one thing that I realized about the book is about myself is what my superpower is. My superpower is my energy, is my excitement, is who I am, right? It's what I bring to the table. And I believe that everybody doesn't like reading. But what I did is I created QR codes that go to a video series. And this video series is me helping you go through financial health days, helping you kind of figure out how to tackle your debt, right? Helping you figure out that you need to save, right? Helping you and teaching you about life insurance, right? So I have videos that go through those different areas that can help you through the process. So if you only decided to just look at the videos, right, you are already like getting a steal of a deal. The book is only $30. Right, it's only $30. It comes, of course, with the video series that's going to happen from the QR codes.
Mm-hmm.
You get an opportunity if you want to jump on a call with me as well to talk further about what's going on for you.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm always going to be your favorite life insurance agent. So if that's what you need to do, you're going to go ahead and get some life insurance with me or roll over your money. It's also a free service that I have, but also accompanies getting the book. Why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
So listen, I know we covered a lot.
Yes.
And what I would like people to do who are watching this, and or some people catch the audio when I do eventually upload that to the podcast, is come over to YouTube, find a video on the live stream. And I want you to tell us what was your biggest takeaway. And what is something maybe that you wanted us to go deeper in to open up a discussion around, but we didn't do it? Because that's typically like our energy, how we flow. Me and Dr. Roche do very well with structured stuff and pinpointing a syllabus. You feel me? We're both professors by nature and we love to teach. But at the same time, sometimes we just want to come on here and FaceTime with y'all and have like 3 talking points that you gave us. And then we can actually unpack it and give more real life case studies, because we snuck in snippets of like life experiences and y'all heard us laugh. But y'all probably heard us laugh way more with Dr. Roche Chain on the other day. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
those are the kind of conversations.
Don't play. My chain is never too far. Okay? Never too far. I do want to let y'all know that it's not that thick of a book, just so y'all don't feel so scared. So I took it out of the package.
Can you open to a page so they can like see? Like
definitely. So I even I'll put one of these pages out here if you guys can see that.
I have like diagram things.
The diagram, and then this is a QR code right there that will help you go to the video series. So it tells you like it's a QR coaching moment to be able to do a financial health reset. So it has that inside the book. And so it's pretty cool. In the back, it does have a couple of like worksheets that you can use, right? A lot of these worksheets that I use when I'm speaking in person. So even if you have an organization that would like me to come and speak and you're like, okay, we'll purchase the book for all the people in the audience, I can actually use the book. So I have presentations for the book to be usable, right? Like everybody's going to go to page 4 together. Everybody's going to go to this page together. And I'm able to do like a 90-minute or even longer, depending on what we're doing, where we can kind of go through the book and people can write in the book what they're looking for, what they want to do. And like they have money memories, of course, their money vision. We have all that kind of covered inside the book.
So for organizations, and I'm also saying this like for the therapists, because we talk about a lot. I like to talk a lot about collaborations. If an agency, because I know I put up your website for like somebody to get your book, but if an agency actually wanted you to come out and speak the way that you just said, and then they are able to buy the books for their audience, which option should they reach out to you in terms of
people have done both. So both options are still okay. It's just that when you use the work with Dr. Roche, it's going to ask you a whole bunch of financial questions that you may not want to answer, and they are required, on there. I would say the easiest way would probably like to slide in my DM. I do have a calendly.com / Dr. Roche / ready. One that's an option that will just kind of go straight. It makes you just get on my calendar very easily. Here goes my number. I don't mind telling y'all my number. It's 510. You can put this on the screen. 629.
Wait, girl, hold on. Wait, 510?
510-629 9362. And that's my business number. And you can send me a text. Hey, I would love for you to speak. You know what I mean? Like, for me, and we can jump on a call. I do have a certain amount of questions, because I like to know the demographic of who I will be speaking to, and as long as it's in alignment with who I am and I'm able to fulfill your needs that you're looking for with it, then we'll talk about it, right? A lot of people are curious about budget. I'm curious about what your budget is, right? And so you tell me what your budget is, and I can like operate within that budget if it feels like it's in alignment with me. whether I'm going to do Zoom or in person.
Yeah.
My last one that I did, the money one, was in person. I give a great show in person, but baby, I could do it over Zoom very well too. Okay, like I do. I mean, I do Zoom presentations all the time for Dr. K's community. And I'm all about firing up the chat and bringing energy, even though it's over Zoom. Like that's why I tell people, like, you can bring energy even in Zoom, so people can feel you, right? And so all that is together as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So listen, drop some, little claps in the chat box if y'all enjoyed this. I know we already have some people saying that they thoroughly enjoyed it. They were hopping in over the last hour or so. And so it is always a great pleasure to have you on the show. I think that as we comb through these comments from this podcast show and then the previous one, I am very sure that we'll bring back the beautiful Black Psychologist collaboration again. And listen, I should have put on my t-shirt.
Yes, I know. I gotta find my t-shirt. I always got my pillow. And it gives you.
Wait, so hold on. Let's share some fun so they can get to know us, right? Let's share with y'all what happened here. Okay. So LA, I think they still have it because they emailed me like last year or something. So this truck show goes around for women. I forgot what it's called, but they go around to like different states like Atlanta, but they come to California. And because me and Dr. Roche are out here and I'm closer to LA, she came out here and we both combined and got a booth. So this was at a time where we had just entered into like another coaching program as students, and we were learning hardcore about branding and marketing. It got nothing to do with mental health. We had to figure that out by ourselves. Okay. And so when we met with our coach, we met with her online. We could not get in person. And we said, we got 1 hour. What is our biggest ask? And we were like, we just want to put people on our email list and then follow up with them later, because it was a truck show. People come for free. But me and Dr. Roche was like, we got to go hard. We got to go big. And so Dr. Roche at that time, she was doing a whole lot of stuff for like speaking events, and hence the pillow. She got, just to show y'all the family event, her and some of her friends from the Bay Area came. My whole family and kids came, and we had a whole like I'm gonna say conveyor belt situation where people went through the cycle of putting their name on an email list to be welcome to our beautiful Black Psychologist community. Other vendor booths were walking over there. Everybody came and visited us because we had everybody cheering and popping, right? Then they went to do Dr. Roche's affirmation, like spin the wheel, like Wheel of Fortune kind of thing. Then they talked to her about self-love, because that was another book that she had written. Then when they circled to the back, I was doing health coaching combined with mental health, similar to how she does finances combined with mental health. So they did some health stuff for women that I had set up in the Mac. And then I was able to sell my book on relationships, which is on Amazon. It's called 12 Steps to Foundational Relationship. And so it was cool because then we went on stage. And then some of the women end up working with us after for some workshops or whatever. But when I say that we were litty lit, and that was, I mean, my eldest is 15. He was like 7. Right. That was like so long ago.
Yes, it was so long ago.
Next time we're wearing our shirts. All right, y'all. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to Dr. Roche's YouTube channel as well. We'll make sure before the replay pops up, when YouTube gives us the opportunity to do so, we'll add her to the collaboration. But in the midst of that, head over to her DM. Also on Instagram, follow her and let her know, that you were here, and then hop on her calendar. All right. And so you all have a great rest of your day. And if you are a therapist, make sure you pay close attention to your email box, because if you participated in that boot camp, remember Dr. Roche will be coming in the summer, but the boot camp enrollment does close on this Thursday. So if you know, because you came to the boot camp, and those live streams are available if you don't know. And then you can sign up for the boot camp officially in the description boxes. All right. All right, y'all. Y'all have a great rest of y'all week. I will talk